Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at an article from the Washington Post that was written by Aaron Gregg and published on September 15th. Robot submarines could soon be used to spy on America's enemies. Now, it's funny. Knowing what drones are capable of, just look at what drones have done on the note of the skies. And indiscriminate attacks, okay, where you're taking the human out of the equation, so to speak. And they're trying to make it sound like, you know, that's all these submarines are going to be used for, just spying on America's enemies. Hell no. They're going to weaponize them the first second they can. Because think about it. If you have a nuclear-powered submarine drone, you have no need for stores on the note of oxygen and food because you've got no crew. You don't have to worry about anything on that note, like, you know, when it comes to the people side of things. You can literally just set the thing loose and it can just go around the whole friggin' planet in the oceans and seas pretty much indefinitely until it needs its reactor refueled. And I think that's kind of where they're going to end up going with this if there are no limitations put on it. Oh, they get into this submarine here, okay? It's called an S-10, a submarine S-10, which why would they name it the same name as the Chevy S-10, which isn't exactly known as a very reliable, dependable, long-lasting pickup? To me, that's kind of like if you were to name it fucking Yugo, the submarine Yugo. But anyway, more than a decade after airborne drones took flight over battlefields, the world's biggest defense manufacturers are eyeing a new market below the ocean's surface. The Navy recently opened up a competition for unmanned submarines that can navigate autonomously. Chicago-based Boeing has taken an early lead in the fledgling market. The company has developed a 51-foot-long vessel called the Echo Voyager to compete for the contract, and last year it bought a company called Liquid Robotics that focuses on smaller unmanned subs. So you can see, when you have a company like Boeing getting involved, this is a big thing. And just look at how long it took for, oh yeah, unmanned drones are just going to be used for surveillance, to the last presidency, and over his 2 terms, sending out drones to kill indiscriminately. I mean, we're talking a span of less than a decade and a half before that happened. So actually less than a decade, because they were doing it in George W.'s presidency. So, I mean, just think about that. It won't be long before there are armed drone subs in the water. Who's to say that they're not even going to be like nuclear capable subs? I mean, this is a scary proposition. Bethesda-based competitor Lockheed Martin is also competing for the contract. A company spokeswoman said Thursday, and it, too, is now ramping up its efforts to investing in another company specializing in autonomous watercraft. See, now you've got them getting involved, too. I mean, this should go to show that this could be something very serious and a consideration and concern. The company's technology investment unit, Lockheed Martin Ventures, announced Friday that it is backing a San Diego-based company called Ocean Aero, which makes various classes of seafaring drones. Termed unmanned underwater vehicles, or UUVs, the size and terms of the transaction were not disclosed. But the venture unit typically makes an investment of between $1 million and $5 million. And who's to say they didn't make more? I mean, they're also hedging their bets with their venture firm, with their venture capital firm. That should say something as well. This just speaks to how big the unmanned systems market has become. That you have Boeing and Lockheed going at this full speed, said Ocean Aero Chief Executive Eric Patton. He's right. It goes to show the amount of interest that is at this point. Just imagine a little further down the road. This is the early stages of this. It's just only going to get bigger from here. Ocean Aero makes a 4-meter-long, battery-powered submarine called the Submarine S-10. The S-10 can loiter on the surface or dive down to a relatively shallow 30 feet. It can navigate autonomously based on pre-programmed waypoints and can be outfitted to scout for and hide from threats completely on its own. It can recharge its batteries on the surface using tiny solar panels or raise a sail to harness the wind for propulsion, something the manufacturer calls energy scavenging. The S-10 has already been sold to 2 undisclosed customers. So, those 2 undisclosed customers, I wouldn't be surprised if they're government agencies. Who's to say whether they're not even in the U.S.? Because there's a lot of foreign interest in the same exact thing. So I would be kind of curious on if any of the 2 were foreign interests. I mean, that would kind of be interesting to find out. The company plans to introduce a larger model called the S200 next year that can travel faster and dive deeper. It's about to start testing a 12-meter-long model it calls a Silent Arrow, which aims to dive down to 200 meters and navigate with the help of an electronic thruster. Patton says his company's Silent Arrow sub-positions the company for future Navy competitions. Yeah, so what he's basically saying is that they're going to create the market for it. So it's not even necessarily the United States Navy is asking for something like this at this point. But they're going to make the product ahead of time and bet on the fact that it's going to be that way. And with them doing that, it kind of incentivizes the Navy to look for an unmanned underwater vehicle like the Silent Arrow. Because if it's there, they didn't know they quote-unquote needed it. Now they do because they've seen it. And, yep. Oh, yeah, we'll buy 50 of them. Or 100 of them. Or 1,000 of them. Who's to say? When the competition started in January, we weren't in a position to compete, he said. Now we're in a position to compete for that. Ocean Aero is part of a nascent but crowded field of startups that has emerged in tandem with smaller, more fail-safe lithium-ion batteries. Yeah, that's true. Lithium-ion technology has got a little bit better. So, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But like I said, who's to say at some point, you got to power these electrically? A nuclear-powered sub-drone. Especially one that's nuclear, capable on the note of being armed with nuclear ballistic missiles. Very scary proposition. The industry is responding to a new school of thought in the upper echelons of the U.S. military. Agencies are looking to use advances in robotics and artificial intelligence as force multipliers, with the idea that combat-capable robots will augment but not replace humans in the wars of the future. Which, the thing is that's kind of a bullshit statement, and here's why. If you are a modern military, you are going to look for the advancements that are going to give you the best ability to win. And if that means technology, which pretty much throughout history, technology has been one of the key factors to winning war. But if you have the technology, you're going to use it. And it's going to get to a point where you're going to have unmanned war, machine versus machine. And the second you get to that point, and we will, not necessarily in my lifetime, I mean, I'm in my early 40s, but we're going to get there eventually. where you're going to have machine fighting machine. And when you have machine fighting machine, and you take that human factor out of the equation, you take that with that the humanity aspect, things are going to go far worse on the note of war than if you have the human factor. And that's because what you're going to lose when you have a war being fought by technology, like artificial intelligence, automation, whatever, robotics. But if you have that going on, yeah, it's just like, okay, I'm sending my robots after your robots. All right? And you're not going to give a shit. So there's never going to be that high price to pay once it gets to that point. And it's just going to fuck us. We're going to probably end up being in more wars than than avoiding them. It's a sad fact of it. The Air Force is working on robotic drones that would fly alongside jet fighters, scout ahead and absorb enemy fire. The Army is experimenting with small-scale reconnaissance robots. Even the U.S. law enforcement officers are buying in. Last year, Dallas police used a robot outfitted with C4 explosives to remotely kill a gunman who had killed 5 police officers. Oh, and they're touting that like it's a good thing. So, they blew up a guy. Instead of shooting him, which does give the chance for him to pay for his crime, okay, to stand trial and pay for his crime, they sent in, I'm wondering what they're calling a robot. I'm not thinking it's a robot. It might be like a bomb squad robot, but I doubt it. But yeah, they basically slapped explosives on something that was RC controlled, sent it in, and blew the guy up. And they're like, woo, what a good thing. Yeah, well, it might have saved some police officers' lives, but you chummed a guy when that wasn't, say, necessary, possibly. That's kind of going to an extreme. And they're making us, they're trying to make this sound like it's a good thing. Gotta love the Washington Post. Some worry that involving robots in the military, in military operations, could imperil human lives and inflame conflict. Exactly. I'm not the only one that thinks this. Although, I don't necessarily agree with the reasoning that's coming up here, like from Elon Musk. Last month, Elon Musk and 115 experts wrote an open letter to the United Nations urging the body to protect us all from autonomous weaponry, which they described as dangerous escalation in military technology. Which I kind of find it funny because Elon Musk is a globalist. A lot of people at the UN are globalists, and he's asking them to protect us all from autonomous weaponry. I don't know. Because, I mean, the thing is the globalists, this is something that they would want. Because there is no way that they could control a population being in the limited numbers that they are. And it's almost impossible that they would have enough loyalists to control a population. Like on the note of in law enforcement, military, whatever. So they're going to need a way to control the population. Only way to do that is through autonomous means. So it's kind of weird to see him going against this. Once deployed, they will permit armed conflict to be fought at a scale greater than ever, and at times scales faster than humans can comprehend, they wrote. These are weapons of terror, that despots and terrorists use against innocent populations, and weapons hacked to behave in unexpected ways. Well, the thing is yeah, they are weapons. It's how you use the weapon. You can't call this a weapon of terror because, say, on an unmanned aerial drone, It would be no different than, I mean, mind you, you've taken a human out of the equation to the extent of they're not there, they're not. So, I mean, they're flying it remotely. So they're not going to have that humanity aspect as much as someone who's in the cockpit. But they're flying in no differently than the fighter jet. They're launching missiles and flying off. Same exact principle. So are you trying to say that a pilot in an F-22 or an F-18, an F-35, whatever, flies in, launches a missile no differently than a drone, it's a weapon of terror? Is that what you're saying? You probably would say no, but it's the same type of situation. It's all how you use the weapon. All right? It's the old thing of, you know, people who are against guns think that guns kill people, when it's the fact that it's people who kill people. And regardless if it's a gun, a knife, or whatever, if someone wants you dead, you're going to end up dead. Lockheed and Boeing argue that robotic subs could one day become the Navy's robotic scouts, augmenting the efforts of the Navy's limited and aging fleet of manned submarines. Well, the funny thing is yes, our submarine fleet is starting to age, but it's not that limited. We have one of the largest submarine fleets in the world. So that says a lot. I mean, we could actually cut back a few subs and probably still be in the lead. Actually, we almost definitely could. My main challenge in the Navy was there were many demands for what people wanted a submarine to do, and you couldn't come close to meeting all of them, said Mike Connor, a retired Navy Vice Admiral and Submarine Force Commander who now runs a company called Thayer Mahan. Autonomous warcraft could make each one of those submarines and destroyers that much more powerful and impactful by orders of magnitude, he said, which is true. Because if you think about it, if you have unmanned subs that can just be lurking in the deep for extended periods and come up and augment our military forces on the high seas, that's definitely going to change the way we wage war on the ocean and the seas. But the thing is there's not really much competition Navy-wise for us anyways. I mean, yeah, you have a Russian Navy and a Chinese Navy, but the Russian Navy is probably the closest, and it doesn't compare to what we have force for force. The only thing they're competitive on would be, say, submarines. So, yeah, we're kind of augmenting a force that already dominates, but all right. So, I mean, here we go. Ocean Aero's robotic subs are likely to be priced in the hundreds of thousands of dollars each and in the tens of millions for the larger models. That's significantly cheaper than the manned nuclear submarines that currently patrol the waters, which, yeah, it is. I mean, if you think about it, you can put them in, have them patrol, give us, you know, a clue of what's going on. They can follow Russian subs and free up our attack subs and spy subs that do that. So, I mean, there is some benefit to this, but it's just going to be turned into a weapon of war, no differently than unmanned aerial vehicles. So, I mean, it just makes you think about it. Ocean Aero's robotic subs can do everything a normal submarine can do, and we would probably never want them to, Patton said, but they can be tasked with things that might waste a normal submarine's time. It would free up the more capable submarines, which is definitely a good thing. I mean, we could actually downsize our submarine fleet or allow some subs to age out and retire without having to worry about scrambling to replace them. I mean, this could help on that note. But again, it's just going to be weaponized before long. For now, the small subs are being pitched mainly as a surveillance tool. Officials at Lockheed Martin say Ocean Aero subs are most likely to be used to map maritime threats, similar to how the U.S. military intelligence agencies already use satellites and aerial drones to collect information from above. We'll be putting eyes and ears more distant from the force to collect information, said Chris Moran, executive director of Lockheed Martin Ventures. Yeah, I mean, if you can get a drone sub into an area closer than a manned, full-size sub, it does have a benefit on that note. But again, it just comes down to the fact that this is going to be weaponized at some point. And it's going to be sooner rather than later. So we have to watch what the technology is being used for, because I don't want them to build a nuclear-powered unmanned underwater vehicle, especially if they arm it. All right, because they're not going to arm it with, say, just torpedoes or something. They would arm something like that with an intercontinental ballistic missile. They would set it loose. It doesn't have to come in for fueling or resupply or anything like that for years on end, because with a nuclear reactor, I mean, you're talking many years of use. And they're just going to set it loose and away it goes. Something like that could be hacked, and you really don't want to have that type of weaponry accessible by anyone, by any means, whether it's hacking or whatever. You want to have that person there to push the button. You don't, once the orders come in, you don't want it to just be, oh, yep, send it off the signal to launch the missile. You don't want that, and that's what would end up with this. But more dangerous missions could soon follow for the Navy robots. The Navy has actively tested unmanned underwater drones' ability to find and disable mines, hoping they will one day protect aircraft carriers in hostile territory. It's not out of the question that the robotic subs could be used to actively attack enemy submarines. No, of course not. And it's not out of the question that they'll be armed with nuclear missiles either. But yet you don't even mention that one. Ocean Arrow Silent Arrow is its largest submarine at 12 meters long, can carry up to 2,000 pounds worth of equipment, meaning it could theoretically be outfitted with advanced weaponry. Not theoretically, in actuality. 2,000 pounds. Okay? It's a few torpedoes, but this is just the beginning. Imagine once they increase the scope and the scale of these drones. They'll want to load a nuclear warhead on one of them and do what I'm talking about. It can carry a pretty large payload, Lockheed's Moran said. That was one of the big attractions for us. See? When you have Lockheed fucking Martin saying something like that, it has to have you stand up and take notice, because they're a weapons manufacturer. They're a military contractor. That's where they make their money. They're not just going to make something that goes around and just, putts through the ocean. No, they're going to make something that's going to be able to wage war. So we have to decide when it comes to these technologies how far we want to take them. Because just think about what could happen with one of these unmanned subs being nuclear powered and armed with an ICBM. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Because someone could hack into it. If Iran can hack one of our drones, unmanned aerial vehicle drones, and crash the fucking thing, it's only a matter of time before someone hacks one of these unmanned submarines and fucks us. And you really don't want to have them be able to hack one that's armed with, anything that could kill as many people as we're talking about with, say, a nuclear payload. But anyways, I'm going to leave this here. If you liked this video, depending on where you are watching it, please give it an upvote or thumbs up. If you want to know when new content of mine hits the internet, don't forget to subscribe to one or more of my social media or video accounts listed here. Also, with YouTube, don't forget to ring that bell. You can find all of my video content on both BitChute and YouTube. This may not be the case with other places I upload to, but I will try to minimize this happening. You are always welcome to interact with me at any of these sites on the list, so feel free to do so. If you have anything you want me to cover in a video when it comes to news or current events, send it right along to me. I will try to do my best to cover it. As always, thank you for watching.